Her granddaughter blew out the birthday candle before she could. Elaine Prescott, 75, didn't scold. She simply folded her napkin. By morning, her locks were changed, the estate rewritten. No more influencers filming in heirloom rooms, no more brunches she didn't ask for. They thought she was just another sweet old matriarch. Now her name is on every deed and theirs is on every locked gate. Wait, before we go any further, I gotta ask, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. The sun filtered weakly through the lace curtains of the East Solarium, casting muted light across the long brunch table. Crystal glasses clinked, silverware tapped. The floral centerpiece, peonies and a few limp roses, tilted sideways in its vase like it had given up hours ago. Elaine Prescott sat 4 seats down from the head of the table. Not at it. That spot was taken by Travis, who'd planted himself there like he'd always belonged. He wore a linen blazer, too white for August, and smiled too easily for someone who hadn't paid for a single thing on the estate in years. "Mom, you like eggs Benedict, right?" he asked without looking at her, already halfway through his own plate. "Of course she does," Charlie chimed in from across the table, swirling mimosa foam with her straw. "It's classic. Like her." Laughter rippled through the table. Light, rehearsed, not quite reaching anyone's eyes. Elaine folded her napkin slowly. She wasn't hungry. She hadn't been since the moment she saw the caterer unloading trays from the back of a rusted Toyota. A brunch? Not even dinner, not even her favorite china, just disposable plates with faint gold trim. She looked around. Every face was either young and glowing or tight with fillers. Ashley, perched nearest the windows for the best lighting, had her phone angled upward and was silently mouthing something to the camera. Lip gloss shimmered. Her smile was pointed inward, meant only for herself. Charlie poured herself a second mimosa and nodded at Elaine's plate. "If you're not going to eat, Mom, at least smile. Ashley's doing a group shot for the Insta story." "I think I'd rather not," Elaine said, adjusting the antique brooch on her collar. No one noticed. The brooch had belonged to her own mother. She'd worn it every year on her birthday. It used to mean something. From the kitchen came the unmistakable buzz of plastic lids being peeled off grocery store cake containers. A moment later, Ashley swept into the room carrying a square chocolate cake on a flimsy gold base, a single pink candle stuck up in the middle, slightly off-center and already tilting. "Yay, Grandma's big 7-5! Ashley cheered, already recording. "Look alive, everybody." No one stood. No speech, no toast, just a chorus of lazy claps and forced smiles. Travis leaned back, his phone already in hand. Charlie adjusted her sunglasses on her head like she was shielding herself from sentimentality. Ashley plunked the cake in front of Elaine, who blinked at the lone candle flickering in front of her. She leaned forward. And then a sudden gust of air, sharp and fast. The candle sputtered out before her lips even parted. Ashley bounced back triumphant. "Too slow, Grandma!" Laughter exploded, loud and exaggerated, like it had been waiting all morning for this moment. Travis grinned. "Well, Mom, you've had your turn." Charlie sipped her mimosa, smirking into the rim. "Don't take it so personally. It's just a TikTok thing." Elaine straightened her back slowly. The chair creaked. She looked at the cake. One half-smudged candle. No knife. No plates ready. Ashley was still filming. "It's called Number Boomer Birthday Fail," she announced, already tapping her phone with speed and delight. "This is going to pop off." Elaine looked at her granddaughter, the girl she used to walk through the apple orchard with, tiny hand clutching her finger. The same child she once taught to ride a pony, to bake corn muffins, to tie a satin bow. Now, Ashley was swiping filters, laughing at nothing. Elaine pushed back from the table. "I think I'll get some air," she said softly. "Oh, come on, we haven't even—" Charlie started. But Elaine was already walking, past the room they used to call the morning room, past the closed-up study, past the place where Richard, her late husband, once whispered, "They'll thank you someday." Outside, the sun was brighter. Too bright. The horses in the back pasture stood like sentries, unmoved. She walked to the side yard where no one ever bothered to look anymore and pulled her phone from her pocket. She opened her email, tapped Compose, typed 3 words. "It's time, Paul." She hit send. Then she looked up at the window where Ashley was already replaying the video for Charlie and Travis. Elaine didn't smile. She just whispered, "Happy birthday to me." The morning after her 75th birthday, Elaine sat alone in the reading nook off the upstairs landing, a place no one but the housekeeper ever seemed to notice. It still smelled faintly of cedar and lemon oil. The walls were lined with hardbacks, actual books, not decor. She scrolled slowly through her phone. Charlie had posted a carousel to the family group account an hour after the brunch. 3 generations. So much love. Prescott pride. In the photos, Travis was laughing with a mimosa midair. Ashley was beaming beside the cake. Charlie had angled her face to the light just enough to make the shot look candid. Elaine, when visible at all, was in the background, blurry in one, cropped in another. In the final photo, the top of her head was cut off entirely, a rogue strand of silver hair behind Ashley's shoulder. Her name wasn't tagged. She enlarged the image, studying her own expression. Somewhere between resigned and invisible, like furniture, or a ghost. She closed the app. Her phone buzzed immediately. Ruth Harmon. Outside. Got hydrangeas. And pie. Elaine smiled softly and pressed the intercom. Come in through the mudroom. Minutes later, Ruth stepped into the reading nook without knocking. Her boots left faint specks of dust on the runner, and her eyes swept the room like she was checking for cracks in the foundation. "Brought you the blue ones," Ruth said, holding up a mason jar of thick-stemmed blooms. "Figured you'd need a little real color after yesterday's plastic joy parade." Elaine didn't speak. She just held out the phone. Ruth squinted at the screen, flipped through the images, and grunted. No mention. Not even a tag. And that girl posted 3 different angles of the damn cake. Elaine's voice was quiet. "I sat through every minute, and somehow I wasn't even there." Ruth set the jar down with a solid thud. "They're not heirs, Elaine, they're parasites, feeding on what you built and laughing at the hand that fed them." There was no drama in her voice, just fact. Elaine looked down at the manila folder beside her, pulled it into her lap. Inside, a copy of the original trust, decades old and updated only once after Richard died. Travis and Charlie each at 40%. Ashley had 20, granted when she turned 18 as a symbol of Prescott legacy. Elaine ran her fingers along the edge of the folder, then stood. "I need to see Paul." Paul Rayner's office sat just outside downtown Lexington, tucked in a stately brick building that used to house a judge's chambers. The walls were lined with framed degrees and oil paintings of horses. A large clock ticked in the corner, audible but not obnoxious. Elaine sat across from him, hands folded neatly, her brooch now replaced by a simple pearl pin. No need to dress like an artifact. Paul read silently for a few minutes, eyes scanning the copy of the trust she'd handed over. He didn't flinch when he saw the annotations. She'd written them in red pen, block letters, underlined 0 next to each heir's name. In the margins, she'd scribbled new designations, Ruth's name, Carson's, and a note, legacy, not inherited, earned. Paul leaned back, his gray eyebrows knit together, not with confusion but with calculation. "You want them out?" he asked. Elaine met his gaze. "I want them erased." A beat passed between them, long enough for the antique clock to tick twice. He folded the folder shut with reverence, like closing a sacred book. "Then let's get to work." Elaine watched the flames flicker inside the iron fire pit behind the carriage house, the smell of smoke curling through the late summer air. The sun had barely cleared the trees, dew still clung to the grass, and the estate, her estate, was quiet for once. No selfies, no brunch chatter, no Travis. Ruth stood beside her with a small cardboard box, tissue paper poking out the top like wilted petals. "I found them still sitting under the buffet," she said, handing the box over. "Same spot where you left them, not even touched." Elaine opened the lid. 3 small packages sat inside, tied with ivory satin ribbon, each one the size of a deck of cards. She undid the bow on one, slowly, as if unwrapping a wound. Inside, a white handkerchief, edges trimmed in lace, a small AD hand-stitched in deep blue. Ashley's, Elaine murmured. Charlie's is lilac, Travis's is hunter green. She had made them all by hand, 2 months of careful work, stolen hours between dawn feedings and estate reports. It was supposed to be a bridge, something quiet and permanent, like dignity. She looked at Ruth, who said nothing, just held out a lighter. Elaine paused, then gently folded the handkerchief back into its box. Burn them. All of them? Elaine nodded once. Keep the ribbon. The paper hissed as the flame caught, and within moments the first box collapsed into blackened corners. Threads curled into ash. By the third, the smoke smelled faintly like lavender and starch. The satin ribbon sat curled beside Ruth's boot, untouched. Elaine turned away. Inside Paul's office later that afternoon, the air was cool and dry, the scent of lemon oil now familiar. Drafts rustled softly in the printer tray as Paul placed a new set of documents on the desk between them. Draft A, he said. Standard language. You remain full grantor and principal. Ruth will be listed as co-executor, and Carson Hale is steward and secondary signatory. Elaine's brow lifted slightly. Carson? Paul tapped the paragraph with his pen. You said legacy should be earned. He's been here since he was 15. Didn't he repair the South Paddock Gate after that storm in 2021, without being asked? Elaine nodded. He didn't even invoice. Paul leaned back. There's loyalty, and then there's roots. Carson's got both. Elaine read the pages. Slowly, carefully. The language was precise, surgical. There was no mention of Travis, Charlie, or Ashley, not even in footnotes. She reached into her bag and pulled out a fountain pen, signed once, twice, 3 times. Paul gathered the pages, tapping them square. We'll file this copy and prep the next round. After that, we start the notifications. A low trill buzzed from Elaine's purse. She glanced at the screen. Travis. She let it ring twice, then answered. His voice came sharp and casual, like static through a grin. Hey, Mom, just checking in. Did you happen to read that article in the Courier today? About how people are turning on old traditions? Can you believe it? Elaine said nothing. I mean, people are just soft now, he continued, laughing. One guy called his grandpa toxic for expecting Sunday dinner. Wild, right? Elaine stared out Paul's window at the horse-shaped weather vane spinning gently in the breeze. Travis lowered his voice a little, pretending concern. I know it's been tense, but you're not actually mad about the brunch, are you? Ashley meant it as a joke. Elaine's tone was frost-lined but calm. Thank you for the call, Travis. That's it? She hung up. Paul looked up from his folder. He'll feel the first ripple soon. Elaine exhaled. Let him think the water's still. The afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the grand hallway as Elaine walked slowly toward the south parlor. The polished floor creaked in that familiar, stately rhythm, but something in the air felt off. The door was closed. That in itself was unusual. The south parlor had always been open, a room of conversation and cigars where Richard used to pour bourbon and talk politics with his friends from the university. The fireplace still held the andirons he'd welded by hand in '78, a quiet cathedral of memory. Elaine reached for the handle. It didn't turn. She frowned, then knocked gently. No answer. She pressed harder. Locked. A muffled voice came from inside. Then laughter. And music. The hollow echo of a trendy pop track bouncing off heritage wood paneling. The door opened slightly. Ashley stood framed in a wash of ring-light glow, phone clutched in one hand, a tube of lip gloss in the other. We're filming, she said flatly. You can come back later. Elaine's eyes swept the room behind her. The antique armchairs had been replaced with white modular seating. Her grandmother's tea table was gone. In its place, a selfie tripod, softbox lights, and a neon sign on the wall that read "Slay All Day" in cursive pink. Excuse me? Elaine said, not raising her voice. Charlie appeared behind Ashley, holding a steamer. Oh, for God's sake, Mother. It's just a room. You don't really use this one anymore. Elaine stood perfectly still, the same way she had when Richard's will had been read, and the vultures began to circle. "Close the door, Ash," Charlie said, already turning back toward the corner vanity. Ashley did. Elaine turned on her heel and walked to the kitchen. 2 hours later, the locksmith arrived in an unmarked van. Ruth met him at the gate. "Change every lock, front to back, master override, no copies unless authorized." The man hesitated. "Authorized by—" Elaine stepped onto the porch, arms folded. "Me?" By sunset, every lock on the Prescott estate had been rekeyed, doorknobs replaced, smart panels installed, access codes set, biometric scanner added at the front gate. Ruth ran a system check from her iPad as the security cameras blinked online. In the corner of the screen, Ashley's pink neon sign flickered. Off. The next morning, Charlie stormed up the front steps in a pair of oversized sunglasses and a workout set that still had tags on the leggings. The door didn't open. She pressed the bell 3 times before Ruth's voice came over the intercom. "May I help you?" Charlie's head jerked back. "Are you kidding me? I live here." "Then try the intercom like a guest," Ruth replied calmly. "Or text for an appointment." Charlie looked into the camera, stunned. "Open the damn door, Ruth." There was a long pause, then a click. The call ended. She called Travis. Travis's text came 30 minutes later as Elaine was pruning the roses near the garden wall. "What the hell is going on?" Elaine tapped once to open the thread. She stared at the message without answering. Then she set the phone on the stone bench beside her and continued pruning. The bush had been overtaken by thorns, too many years without cutting. She worked slowly, trimming only what could no longer be salvaged. The hallway was quieter now. Elaine stood beneath the grand staircase, where the old brass wall sconce flickered gently over a framed document that had been mounted for decades. It was the original summary of the Prescott Family Trust, dated 1992, updated in 2004, and untouched since Richard's passing. The glass had yellowed slightly. The print was small, the font self-important. She stared at it for a long moment. Then, with both hands, she lifted it off the hook. Behind the frame was a pale outline, ghost print from years of sunlight exposure. She walked it to the library, set it on the table, and returned with a new piece. A sweeping oil landscape of the Kentucky hills in early autumn, red maples and gold-edged ash trees under a wide sky. She hung it in the same spot. From the second floor, she could hear Ashley's voice drifting out a half-open window. "Okay, lighting check. Horses in the background, yes." Elaine blinked once, slowly, then turned down the hall. Ashley stood in the pasture, angling her phone to get a shot over her shoulder. The horses swished their tails lazily behind her. She wore a long white sundress and knee-high cowboy boots that had clearly never touched mud. Her captions would probably read something like #countryqueen or #humblevibes. She didn't notice Ruth striding up behind her until a shadow crossed the phone screen. "Sorry, pasture's closed," Ruth said. Ashley lowered her phone, blinking behind oversized sunglasses. I'm filming content for partnerships." "This isn't a studio, it's a working property." Ashley scoffed. "My mom said I could—" "Your mom doesn't own anything here," Ruth said flatly. "Now move." Ashley opened her mouth, then snapped it shut and stomped off toward the guest house, muttering. Ruth watched her go, then turned her attention to the camera, still running. She tapped the screen. Deleted. Meanwhile, in downtown Lexington, Paul Rayner leaned back in his chair, watching Travis's name light up his caller ID for the 3rd time that day. He answered on the 4th ring. "Paul Rayner." Travis's voice burst through the line. "What the hell is going on with the trust? Charlie can't get into her own room. My daughter just got booted off a damn field. What are you people doing?" Paul didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "My client is exercising a legal right granted by your late father. Clause 7C, full override authority, effective upon her sole discretion." That clause was symbolic. Paul chuckled once. "That's not how law works. You'll be hearing from our attorney. You'll need standing first." He ended the call before Travis could sputter out another threat. That evening, Charlie tried to use her keycard on the back gate entrance. It blinked red. Then again. Finally, she pressed the intercom. Ruth's voice crackled through. "Good evening." "What's wrong with my keycard?" "It's no longer active." "You've made a mistake." "No," Ruth said. "We fixed one." Elaine appeared in the doorway just then, lit from behind by warm hall light, dressed in a navy cashmere sweater and slacks. Her voice was calm as ever. "The lock's changed." Charlie stared at her, jaw set but uncertain. "This is our family home." Elaine didn't blink. "Is it?" By the following morning, the updated trust had been filed with the county clerk. Paul stood outside the courthouse with a thick envelope, stamped, notarized, sealed. The clerk behind the glass counter slid it into the archive box with a rubber-gloved hand, unaware of the storm it would unleash. On the new paperwork, only 2 names appeared under executor and successor steward, Elaine Prescott and Ruth Harmon. No Prescott children, no grandchildren, no bloodlines, only loyalty. The hydrangeas were blooming in tight, defiant clusters near the east fence line, but Elaine barely glanced at them. She was pacing the gravel walk beside the stables, her slippers crunching on stone, the air thick with cut grass and calculation. Ruth stood at the far end, clipboard in hand, directing the landscapers. Elaine's estate hadn't looked this well kept in a decade. The irony wasn't lost on her. When her children thought they'd inherit it, they let it rot. Now that they had no claim, it glowed. Her phone rang in her pocket. Not the usual tone. This was the one she assigned to Paul. "Elaine," he said as soon as she answered, "you might want to brace yourself." 2 hours later, a black SUV pulled up to the estate gate. No valet, no press, just government plates and tinted windows. Elaine had already set out the tea. She waited on the front porch in a pale cream blouse, her silver hair pinned back in a soft chignon. There was a tray on the wrought iron table beside her, mint tea, lemon wedges, 2 crystal glasses, and a folder. The social worker who stepped out of the SUV looked younger than she expected, late 30s maybe. Polished, empathetic eyes. Her badge caught the sun as she clipped it to her jacket. "Mrs. Prescott, I'm Serena Morales from Adult Protective Services. I just need a few minutes of your time." "Of course," Elaine said smoothly. "Would you like lemon or honey?" Serena blinked. "Lemon's fine." They sat. Serena glanced briefly at the grand porch, the acres of pristine land behind it, and the well-dressed woman in front of her. There were no obvious signs of confusion, no hoarding, no erratic behavior. Elaine passed over the folder. Inside, a typed list of her medications, dosages, and a recent blood panel. "I figured we might save time." Serena opened her tablet. "Do you mind if I ask a few personal questions?" "Please." The questions came gently but thoroughly. Had she felt overwhelmed lately? Was anyone denying her access to her finances or pressuring her to change legal documents? Elaine smiled slightly, only in the way mosquitoes pressure skin. Serena gave the hint of a laugh. "Do you manage your own medical care?" Elaine tapped the last page of the folder. It was a signed letter from her primary care physician, dated last week. Patient is fully independent, mentally sharp, and capable of managing all affairs without assistance. Dr. Chasen insisted on the word sharp. He teaches chess at the community center. Serena finished typing. "Thank you, Mrs. Prescott. You're clearly well prepared." "I always am," Elaine replied, pouring another glass. Later that afternoon, Elaine stood by the solarium windows with her cell pressed to her ear. Travis picked up on the second ring. "Mom?" His voice was cautious, fake concern laced with calculation. "They came," she said. He didn't respond immediately. Elaine's voice never lifted. "You sent someone to question my sanity, to prove incompetence, to undermine a legal trust." "Mom, I was just—" "You thought I wouldn't notice?" Travis sighed. "It's not like that. People are worried." "No, Travis. You're worried. About the locks, the land, the bank account, the cameras. That's not concern. That's exposure." "Mom dash. Don't ever question my mind," she said evenly. "Only your own motives." She hung up. That evening, Ruth installed a new camera above the estate's front gate. Discreet, infrared, motion-activated. She clipped the wire along the wrought iron arch, testing the angle with her phone. "Catch the whole drive?" Elaine asked from behind her. "Every inch," Ruth said. "And it uploads directly to the cloud now, no tampering, not even from the inside." Good. Ruth wiped her hands on her jeans. You think he'll stop here? Elaine didn't answer right away. She looked toward the tree line where the old stone boundary met the edge of the road, where Richard used to stand with a hunting rifle and a tumbler of bourbon, swearing no one would ever touch what they built. They never read the trust, she murmured. Now they're trying to rewrite it with fear. She turned toward the house. I'm not afraid. Paul arrived at the estate just after 9, a banker's box in one hand and a folder tucked under the other arm. He didn't park out front like he used to. He pulled around back by the greenhouse, where the gravel was soft and the eyes were fewer. Elaine met him in the study. The door clicked shut behind them as he set the box on the desk. Where did you find them? She asked. In the archives, Paul said, already unsealing the folder. 2 file drawers behind trust revisions, untouched since 2008. Inside were ledgers, handwritten, some pages with faded carbon copies, others printed from old QuickBooks software. Paul turned them carefully, pointing as he went. Charlie's mortgage, wired directly to her bank, December 2012, $438,000. Elaine didn't flinch. Ashley's tuition, University of Miami, 3 semesters, plus rent, plus car. Never said thank you, Elaine murmured. Paul flipped to another page. Travis, twice, once in 2009, debt from a failed land development in Tennessee, then again in 2015, IRS back taxes. Elaine tapped her fingers slowly against the desk. And they still call me cold. Paul looked up. You want them to pay it back? No, Elaine said. I want it accounted for. 3 days later, a leather-bound binder arrived at 3 separate addresses. Each was identical. No note, no explanation, just a single label engraved on the cover in gold foil. Gifts received, now returned. Inside, itemized records, page numbers, transaction details, account numbers redacted but verified, copies of email receipts, signatures. Travis was the first to call. He didn't bother with pretense. You can't demand repayment, he barked before Elaine even said hello. I'm not, she replied. I'm just canceling the score. You think this makes you righteous? You didn't give out of love. You gave to control. Elaine smiled faintly. And you took to forget the difference. He hung up. That afternoon, Ruth changed the barn's access codes. No more open gates. No more wandering influencers using the stables as backdrops. No more Ashley parading horses like props. She installed biometric readers on the main tack room and the feed storage, a fingerprint scan. Only Elaine, Ruth, Carson, and 2 long-trusted ranch hands had access now. Charlie showed up the next morning in high heels and a panicked face. What do you mean we can't get into the barn? She hissed, catching Ruth just as she unloaded feed into the storage bin. Ruth didn't look up. Means what it says. You're joking. Nope. Charlie gestured furiously toward the paddock. Ashley has content scheduled with a sponsor on Thursday. There's a whole story arc. You know how that works, right? Ruth snapped the bin lid shut and straightened. Sure, but this ain't a story anymore. It's a boundary. Charlie stepped back, breathing hard. This is still her home. Ruth wiped her hands on her jeans. That's not my call. Later, in the guest house, Charlie stood at the window, arms crossed tight over her chest. Ashley was sprawled on the couch, editing a video with a distracted pout. They locked the damn barn, Charlie said. Ashley didn't look up. You can call Grandma, I'm not. Don't be stupid, this isn't about cake anymore. Ashley kept scrolling. Charlie turned sharply. Start packing your clothes. That got her attention. Ashley blinked. Wait, what? They're moving the codes, shifting utilities. We're next. This place isn't ours anymore. You said they couldn't. I said they wouldn't. I was wrong. The estate's great dining room hadn't hosted a proper gathering in years. Not since Richard's last birthday, when the laughter was genuine and the chairs were full. Now it breathed again. Elaine stood at the head of the table, smoothing the edge of a linen runner older than Charlie's second marriage. The room was warm with candlelight and dusk. 6 place settings, each with silver chargers, pressed napkins, and crystal glasses that caught the flicker of flame like starlight. No name cards. They didn't need them. She adjusted one last fork, then stepped back to take in the full view, mahogany gleaming, the chandelier above polished to a soft gold, the antique china plates gleaming like bone. The centerpiece, low white tulips and sprigs of rosemary, offered just enough scent to ground the moment. It was her spring dinner, a tradition she'd once hoped her children would inherit. They never had. Paul arrived first, dressed simply in a charcoal blazer with a silk pocket square. Ruth came in through the back, apron still dusted with flour, cheeks pink from the oven's heat. And then Joanna, her neighbor from down the road, a retired art teacher with a ribald laugh and stories for days, entered holding a glass pie dish wrapped in a checkered towel. "I didn't use pecans," Joanna announced. "Travis never liked them." Elaine smiled. "Neither do I." They took their seats. No one rushed. No one performed. Conversation unfurled naturally, like smoke from a slow fire. Talk of Ruth's new garden beds, Paul's lecture at the law school, Joanna's one-woman protest at the planning commission. When the roast was served, everyone helped themselves. When the wine was poured, no one held up a phone. No speeches, no hashtags, just plates passed hand to hand, and laughter that came without prompting. At dessert, Elaine stood slowly and raised her glass. They quieted without expectation. She looked down the table, every face lit softly by candlelight, not family by blood, but none of them had ever betrayed her, mocked her, forgotten her. She'd raised Charlie at this table, bandaged Travis's skinned knee on its corner, taught Ashley how to fold napkins in the shape of swans, but they had never truly seen the table, only what they could take from it. She cleared her throat gently. "To chosen family," she said, voice steady. "The only kind that lasts." Glasses clinked. Pie was served. The flames burned low. No one noticed the absence of her children, not even Elaine. The next morning, a moving truck arrived just after sunrise. Carson directed the crew quietly. No loud radios, no careless steps. He helped lift each section of the antique table himself, wrapping every edge in thick cotton blankets. The chairs were bundled 2 by 2, loaded with reverence. Elaine stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching them go. Ruth approached with 2 travel mugs of coffee, handing one over without comment. "They're delivering it to the Historical Society this afternoon," she said. "Already have a permanent display space cleared." Elaine nodded. "Good. It should be seen." "Want me to box up the dining set?" "Number, let it go with the table." Ruth took a sip of her coffee. "Feels like closing a door." Elaine turned to look at her, a small, satisfied glint in her eye. "Number feels like opening a different one." The Lexington skyline shimmered in the late morning haze as Paul pressed his signature to the final document. 2 notaries flanked the table, each with tidy stamps and methodical hands. A new trust, airtight, irrevocable, now bore Elaine Prescott's name as sole principal. No beneficiaries listed, no family tree attached. Paul slid the completed deed across the polished mahogany toward Elaine. "You'll want to keep this copy in your vault," he said, voice low. "The rest gets filed with the county, effective immediately." Elaine accepted the folder without ceremony. She didn't smile, but her breath came easier. That afternoon, Ruth stepped into the Lexington registry carrying a manila envelope. It was thick, certified, witnessed, notarized, and triple sealed. The clerk behind the glass barely glanced at her before taking the envelope and scanning the barcode. "Filed under Prescott Trust Revision?" "No," Ruth said clearly. "Filed under Prescott Legacy Trust, new title, new ownership, new designation." The woman raised an eyebrow but nodded. The stamp hit the corner of the page with a soft thunk. As Ruth walked out, she could see the courthouse steeple reflected in the registry's glass, sharp, looming, like a guardian. By the next morning, Travis's attorney had fired off a certified letter claiming family right of access based on legacy occupancy and historic utility contributions. Paul received it, skimmed it, and slid it into the shredder without breaking stride. "Unopened," he told Elaine when she called, "just like your son's sense of entitlement." Charlie's name was removed from all remaining utility accounts within 48 hours. The gas company confirmed the change by email. The water district required a notarized signature, which Ruth handled on site. The internet account, once under Charlie's name for streaming necessities, was quietly deactivated. By Thursday, Charlie's tablet refused to connect. The estate Wi-Fi no longer recognized her MAC address. That same day, Ashley posted a tearful video filmed from the back patio of the guest house. Her mascara smudged perfectly, lashes clumped in the corners. "I just don't know what's happening," she sniffled into the camera. "I was so close to Grandma, and now she won't even answer my texts. They're turning her against us." She paused for effect. "It's like elder manipulation, financial abuse. I'm scared for her." The post racked up 2,000 views in under an hour, mostly from suburban influencers and curiosity trolls. Then the comments started. "You mean the woman whose cake you blew out on video? Not the trust fund baby crying elder abuse after she got booted from the pasture. Girl, sit down." Paul forwarded the video link to Elaine with a single-word subject line. Response? Elaine replied, "Make it legal." 2 days later, Ashley received a formal cease and desist from Paul's office, complete with a transcript of her own video, screen captures of the trust revision, a footnoted reference to Kentucky's digital harassment statutes. The letter ended with, "Further defamatory claims will be pursued in civil court. Screenshots are forever." Paul Rayner didn't like cameras, but the studio was quiet, the lighting gentle, and the interviewer came with a promise. "We're focusing on prevention, on dignity, not drama." He adjusted his cufflinks once, then nodded. The segment aired the following Sunday, just after the church hour. A special feature on local WKYT called Safeguarding Elders, New Legal Tools for a New Generation. Paul appeared against a tasteful navy backdrop. His voice was calm, measured, sharp as a scalpel. "We're seeing a rise in subtle financial coercion," he said. "Guilt-tripping, expectation-based entitlement. It doesn't always look like abuse until you follow the money." The footage cut to stock images, old hands passing keys to younger ones, smiling caregivers, checkbooks and pill bottles. Then a reenactment, tastefully done. A silver-haired woman in a cream blouse, a table full of blurred faces, a cake with one flickering candle. The actress leaned forward to blow it out. A younger hand beat her to it. Laughter, cut to black. No names, no estate location, no direct quotes. But the scene was unmistakable. Travis saw the segment from his hotel room off Nicholasville Road, where he'd been holed up for the past week, waiting for things to cool down. His phone buzzed nonstop during the broadcast. Links, screenshots, 2 missed calls from Charlie. He called his lawyer within the hour. "She's defaming me publicly," he spat. "I want to sue." The lawyer was quiet for a moment, then cleared his throat. "You don't have standing." "What do you mean, I don't have standing?" "You're not in the trust anymore. You're not listed as a dependent. There's no financial tie, and the clip didn't name you. In fact, it didn't name anyone. She's using me as a symbol." "Legally," the lawyer said, "you're a ghost." The following Thursday, Travis did try to file a nuisance suit in small claims court, citing emotional distress and character damage. The judge dismissed it in under 5 minutes. Paul never even had to speak. Ruth did attend the hearing, though. She sat in the back wearing a dark green barn jacket and holding a to-go coffee cup with both hands. She didn't testify. She didn't frown. She just watched. Travis stormed past her after the ruling, briefcase slamming against his thigh. He didn't say a word, but she held his eye for 3 full seconds as he passed. She blinked first, not out of fear, out of closure. Back at the guest house, Charlie tapped her credit card on the guest bathroom vanity, watching it decline on a facial peel order. She tried another, then another. All 3 failed. She opened her banking app. The message appeared in red. Account access restricted. Linked institution authorization revoked. She scrolled through old statements and saw it clearly now. She'd been charging utilities and travel expenses directly through a sub-account of the family trust. She'd never noticed, because she'd never once looked. Outside, the lights flickered, then went out. That night, Ashley posted a story on Instagram, crying into a blanket. "So like, if anyone wants to help, there's a link in my bio. Grandma's lawyer cut us off. Like, completely. I'm not asking for much, just like stability. The GoFundMe was titled Generational Injustice Recovery Fund. By morning, it had raised $317. Then it was reported 3 times. Paul's office filed the fraud report directly, attaching her original video, her current location, Elaine's guest house, her lack of tenancy rights or eviction status. The page was shut down by noon. The garden had never looked better. Even in Richard's time, with his obsessive pruning and seasonal fertilizer schedules, it had never quite reached this level of deliberate elegance. Half wild, half choreographed, like a symphony in full bloom. Late summer light poured over manicured hedges and stone paths, and strings of soft white lights glowed under the arching limbs of magnolias. A string quartet played near the east fountain, Debussy, not Bach, delicate but with teeth. Elaine stood at the edge of it all in a deep plum silk dress, her silver hair swept up and her pearl earrings catching glints of amber from the setting sun. No press, no influencers, no broadcast booths, just hand-addressed invitations delivered 3 weeks prior. RSVP only. Ruth moved through the guests in a soft blue shawl, nodding, smiling, placing gentle hands on shoulders. She knew nearly everyone by name. Her laugh came easy when someone referenced a memory from the stables or the back orchard. She held a tray of lemonade glasses like she belonged there, not as staff, but as hostess, because she was. Paul lingered near the hydrangeas, chatting with a retired judge and 2 professors from the university. He had left his tie at home. His eyes tracked the flow of conversation the way a conductor might survey strings before a crescendo. When the music paused, he stepped forward, tapped a spoon gently against his glass, and waited for the murmurs to still. Elaine turned to face him. "Not long ago," he began, "I had the privilege of working on a rather complex estate restructuring, the kind of thing that usually takes a year, sometimes 2. Laughter. Paul smiled. "It took 3 weeks. A hush followed. He looked at Elaine, not with admiration but with a kind of proud awe. It worked because the woman at the heart of it didn't lead with vengeance. She led with precision, with calm, and with grace sharp enough to cut marble. He raised his glass. To Elaine Prescott, a woman who made grace her weapon. Applause followed, not rowdy, not polite, real, long. Elaine didn't bow, she didn't gesture. She just lifted her glass slightly in return. Guests returned to their tables beneath the canopy. A breeze picked up through the hedges, rustling linen napkins and catching strands of Ruth's hair as she walked the path toward Elaine. "Thought you didn't like speeches," Ruth teased, offering her another glass of wine. "I don't," Elaine replied, "but I like accuracy." In the far corner of the lawn, beneath a wrought iron trellis, hung a simple white banner trimmed in lavender. Elaine Prescott, 75 years of power. The words weren't printed in gold or surrounded by family photos, no digital display, no projected montage, just cotton, stitching, and truth. Back at the guest house, Ashley stood at the window in gym shorts and a hoodie 2 sizes too big. Her phone was dead. Charlie was pacing, arms crossed, refusing to look out. From their vantage, they could see the flickers of candlelight, the shimmer of silverware, the silhouettes of real guests in real conversation. Laughter carried faintly on the wind. No one had come to their door. No one had even mentioned their names. They weren't uninvited, they were irrelevant. Later that night, after the last guest hugged goodbye and the quartet packed up their instruments, Elaine sat with Paul and Ruth beneath the arbor. The candles were still burning. The air smelled like rosemary and distant fireflies. "I used to think legacy was built on blood," she said. "Then I realized it's built on memory." Paul nodded, swirling the last of his wine. "And memory," Elaine added, "can be rewritten." The footage began with silence. Just light, early morning, breaking through sheer curtains in the upstairs reading nook. Then a soft piano note. Another. A slow, graceful melody unfurled like memory made audible. Elaine appeared on screen, black and white at first. Archival clips, subtly restored, a graduation photo, her wedding day with Richard, a candid laugh from 1982 as she reached for a toddler's hand beside a horse paddock, a classroom whiteboard with chalk dust still floating. Then came color. Elaine now, walking the garden paths, opening a book, raising a glass with Ruth and Paul beneath the arbor, hands arranging tulips, fingers brushing the banister as she climbed the stairs, this time with full control of her footing. Then the sound cut. A single jarring clip flashed in. Ashley's voice, shrill and giddy. "Too slow, Grandma." The cake. The candle. Laughter. It played without commentary, just the raw moment. Then silence again. Fade to black. Elaine's voice entered next, measured, low, unmistakable. "I built the table, then I cleared it." The screen faded to white. Then Elaine Prescott. Legacy, rewritten. The video went live on a Thursday evening. No press release, no caption, just a quiet upload to the Lexington Women's Alliance website and a soft repost from the Kentucky Elder Protection Coalition. Within an hour, it was everywhere, shared by lawyers, educators, advocates, pulled into a university lecture on autonomy, retweeted by an elder rights nonprofit out of Denver, then by a senator's chief of staff. The comments came fast. "That's how you fight with dignity." Her granddaughter posted a mockery. She posted history. "We should all be so composed under fire." The original cake clip, once a joke, was now locked inside something larger, something permanent. Ashley had made it go viral. Elaine made it matter. Travis saw it on LinkedIn, of all places. His face flushed as he clicked the autoplay. The moment repeated itself in full resolution. He scrolled down, furious, and clicked comment. "This is a manipulative half-story." Blocked. He opened another account. Tried again. Blocked. He stared at the screen for a long time, then shoved his laptop off the hotel desk. It hit the floor with a soft, impotent thud. At the guest house, Ashley scrolled in silent horror, her face drained as the post count climbed. The messages started. People DM'd her with screenshots. One sent a clown emoji. The mockery was sudden and pointed. No one was praising her. No one was defending her side. She clicked into her account settings, paused, then hit delete account. "Are you sure?" the platform asked. "Yes." The screen blinked white. Then she was gone. Charlie, watching from a distance, didn't respond publicly. When a former colleague messaged her to ask if the woman in the video was her mother, she typed 3 dots in the reply box, then deleted them. She responded simply, "I had nothing to do with that post." Then she closed the app and went to pour herself a drink. The bottle was nearly empty. Back in Paul's office, the original copy of Elaine's video was burned to 3 encrypted flash drives and locked in a fireproof safe. The file was marked with a timestamp and cataloged into the Prescott Trust Ledger as Exhibit D, Digital Abuse Response Material. "Now it's legal record," Paul said, locking the drawer, "and admissible if ever needed." Elaine sat quietly, reviewing a printed transcript. She read it through once, then again, then folded it in thirds and placed it in her bag. "I didn't do it for them," she said. Paul nodded. "I know." The ballroom of the Lexington Heritage Hotel glowed under antique chandeliers, polished so clean they mirrored every flicker of the white candles below. Velvet drapes in deep hunter green framed each towering window, and the scent of lilies and bourbon trailed through the air like legacy itself. It was the 47th annual Founders Banquet, black tie only, sold out weeks ago. At the center table, beneath a carved walnut crest of the city seal, sat Elaine Prescott. She wore a floor-length gown of slate silk, understated and precise. No diamonds, no pins, just quiet command. Her back straight, hands folded lightly, eyes fixed on the stage ahead. To her left, Paul. To her right, Ruth in an elegant navy pantsuit, her silver hair tucked into a low bun. A man in a tuxedo took the stage and tapped the mic. "Tonight, we honor not just a preservationist, not just a philanthropist, not just a force of civic grace." He paused. "But a pioneer in preservation, policy, and power. Please welcome Lexington's own, Elaine Ruth Prescott." Applause erupted, long and rising. Paul stood and walked toward the podium, plaque in hand. In a small hotel 2 miles away, Travis sat in a stiff chair, tie loosened, watching the live stream glitch in and out on his laptop. Charlie sat beside him, heels off, drink in hand, mascara smudged slightly beneath one eye. The feed buffered, then caught up. They saw their mother rise from her seat. They saw the camera flash as she reached the stage. They heard the words, but they couldn't touch them. Back in the ballroom, Paul set the plaque in Elaine's hands. Etched in brass, Elaine R. Prescott, for enduring contribution to the civic spirit of Lexington and for reclaiming legacy with vision and valor. She held it for a breath, then stepped to the mic. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady. "I was taught to believe legacy came from lineage, that it passed from one name to the next like silverware or deeds." She let the room quiet again. "But legacy," she continued, "isn't inherited. It's curated, protected, sometimes reclaimed." Ruth sat, motionless, proud. Paul nodded, arms crossed. Elaine's gaze moved across the crowd, not searching but steady. "There's a saying in my family," she said. "One I've rewritten for myself. The legacy goes where the love is." A pause. Then applause. Not out of obligation, but resonance. Because half the room knew exactly what she meant. Outside, by the banquet entrance, Ruth stood at the velvet rope, quietly checking the final list. Ashley approached with sunglasses and a wide scarf wrapped around her neck like armor. "I'm on the list," she said quickly. Ruth didn't even check. "No, you're not." Ashley leaned in, lowering her voice. "She's still my grandmother." Ruth didn't flinch. "Then why did you laugh while she was humiliated on her birthday?" Ashley blinked. "I didn't." "You posted it. You tagged it. You monetized it." Ashley shifted her weight. "She forgave me." "No, Ashley," Ruth said. "She forgot you." A beat. Then Ruth turned her eyes back to the door. Ashley didn't follow. Back inside, Elaine descended the stage as the quartet resumed with a soft rendition of Blue Moon. Guests returned to their tables, but no one left early. The night felt heavier now, real, unvarnished. Paul leaned toward her. "It's done." Elaine nodded. "What do we tell the press when they ask what you plan to do next?" She took a sip of sparkling water, then set the glass down. "Tell them the Prescott Foundation is being restructured. Fully. All philanthropic? All public good," Elaine said. "Not a dollar for blood." The welders arrived just after dawn. A low hum of machinery echoed across the long gravel drive as two men in gray jumpsuits adjusted measurements at the foot of the estate. Ruth stood beside them, holding a folded schematic and a mug of black coffee. It wasn't a fence install, it was the final act of a boundary. Elaine watched from the solarium window as the wrought iron gate was lifted into place. It was beautiful, brutal, meant to last. The metalwork curved with elegant symmetry, tight scrolls, and a central crest of interlocking P's, the kind of detail that looked ornamental until you saw the reinforced anchor bolts and the smart lock terminals tucked beneath a brass lip. When the welders stepped back, Ruth walked forward and pulled away the protective cloth covering the plaque. It gleamed in the early sun. Prescott Estate. Established 1974, guarded since 2025. Elaine exhaled once. No words. That afternoon, she walked to the bottom of the drive with a screwdriver in hand. One by one, she unscrewed the nameplates from the old family mailbox. Prescott, T. Prescott, A. Prescott, C. She set them in a small linen bag and tucked them into the trash bin behind the garage. Not out of malice, but because they no longer belonged to the address. Only one name remained on the freshly brushed brass, Elaine R. Prescott. At a budget motel outside Versailles, Charlie sat cross-legged on the bed, laptop open, blinking at a blank email draft. The fan clacked faintly in the wall. Her wine glass had gone warm. She stared at the blinking cursor for 10 minutes. Then finally she wrote, "Subject, us. We made mistakes, I know that. We laughed when we should have listened, took when we should have cared. I can't speak for Travis or Ashley, but I see it now. I really do. You don't owe us anything, but I wanted you to know, I'm sorry." She signed it simply, Charlie, then she hit send. Elaine read the email in the garden just before dusk, sitting beneath the arbor where the summer party had once ended in quiet laughter and full plates. She read it twice, then replied, subject, us. You're right. You made mistakes. And I made decisions. There was no sign-off, just a final period. She closed the tablet, then stood and walked toward the front gate. By nightfall, the work was done. Motion lights flicked on along the stone columns. The gate responded to facial recognition and voice match. Ruth had programmed it herself, twice. Paul stopped by briefly to inspect it, running his hand along the cold steel. "It's poetic," he said softly. Elaine didn't respond. She stepped forward, pressed her palm against the access panel, and watched the gate glide shut. The locks clicked into place with a satisfying finality. Not loud, not angry, just irreversible. At the motel, Charlie checked her inbox. No reply. She refreshed. Then it came in. 4 lines, and a truth too clean to argue. She read it once, then shut her laptop without logging out. Inside the estate, Ruth dimmed the exterior lights and poured 2 whiskeys. Neat. She handed one to Elaine. "Feels like the end of something," she said. Elaine took the glass. "No," she said. "Feels like it's finally mine." The sun had just slipped behind the hills when Elaine stepped barefoot onto the back porch. A single slice of vanilla cake sat on the table. No writing on the frosting, no plastic flowers, just smooth buttercream, a thin sliver of strawberry in the middle, and 1 slender candle, already lit. No one was filming, no one was watching. Just dusk, breeze, and the distant hum of crickets. Elaine sat slowly, smoothing the hem of her cardigan across her lap. The flame flickered once, then stilled, its glow soft against her cheek. She didn't blow it out right away. She watched it, let it live for a moment, let it belong to her. Then, gently, she leaned forward and extinguished the flame. No one interrupted. No one laughed. No one said she was too slow. She took a bite of the cake. Sweet! Software, cool from the fridge. She closed her eyes and let it melt. A screen door creaked behind her. Ruth stepped out holding 2 tall glasses of sweet tea, lemon wedges balanced on the rim. "Happy birthday," she said softly, setting 1 glass beside Elaine. "Again? You get as many rounds as you want." Elaine chuckled under her breath and tapped her glass to Ruth's. They drank in silence. The garden stretched out before them in its last golden hues, roses, hydrangeas, and the last light catching in dew that hadn't yet fallen. Inside the house, a phone buzzed faintly on the kitchen counter. Elaine let it buzz once more before reaching through the screen door, retrieving it. "A text from Paul. Press request again. Want me to stall?" She typed without hesitation. "Let them wait. I'm living it." She set the phone face down. The wind shifted. Leaves stirred in the magnolia above, casting moving shadows over the edge of the porch. Somewhere near the pasture, a horse shuffled lazily, flicking its tail. The gravel path caught the moonlight just enough to outline the estate's newly sealed gate at the edge of the road, shut, locked, glowing faintly with motion light. Elaine looked down at her hands, stronger now, steadier than they'd been last year or the year before. Her name was on the title. Her name was on the deed. Her name was on the gate and the trust and the plaque in the city archives. Her name was hers again. "Think they'll try to come back?" Ruth asked gently. "Probably," Elaine said. "Want me to add facial ban on the gate?" Elaine gave a soft laugh. "No need. It knows the difference." Ruth leaned back in her chair. "What'll you do tomorrow?" "Same thing I did today," Elaine said. "Wake up in a house that belongs to me, walk a property I protected, drink tea with people I trust." The candle, now just a curl of smoke, trailed into the sky like a question answered. Ruth stood, gave Elaine's shoulder a squeeze, and disappeared back into the house. Elaine stayed. She finished the cake, slowly, bite by bite, no noise, no phone calls, no interruptions. Just the garden, the stars beginning to bloom, and the sound of wind nudging history in a different direction. She leaned her head back and closed her eyes. And in the silence, she thought of that brunch, of that candle, of how small she'd felt, how quickly they'd laughed, How certain they were that she'd always be a footnote in a story they believed was theirs. She smiled now. Not bitter, not triumphant, just whole. And as the night deepened and the porch light blinked on in soft amber, Elaine whispered to the dark, "They laughed when I tried to blow out a candle, so I blew out their claim, one signature at a time."